All right, Deuteronomy chapter 32, coming up to these last couple chapters of the book of Deuteronomy, where this is where we're going to get a little bit more of the detail of this prophecy that Moses was given about the children of Israel going bad and basically sinning against God. All right, so Israel will sing the song of Moses and acclaim, God speaks to heaven and earth. The children of Israel were known in the premortal life. God chose them in this life. They forgot the rock of their salvation. He sent terror, a sword, and vengeance upon them. There is no God beside him. Moses will be gathered to his people. So this is just wrapping everything up, basically. So verse 1, this is the prophecy that Moses was giving to them. Give ear, O ye heavens, and I will speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. My doctrine shall drop as the rain, my speech shall distill as the dew, as the small rain upon the tender herb, as the showers upon the grass. Because I will publish the name of the Lord, ascribe ye greatness unto our God. He is the rock, his work is perfect. All his ways are judgment. A God of truth and without iniquity, just and right is he. So this is talking about God and his attributes. In verse 5, they have corrupted themselves, meaning Israel. Their spot is not the spot of his children. They are a perverse and a crooked generation. So meaning they're supposed to be a peculiar generation, but not a crooked generation. And they went the wrong way. Verse 6, do ye thus requite the Lord, O foolish people and unwise? Is not he thy father that hath bought thee? Hath he not made thee and established thee? Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee. So helping them remember, guys, you've got to remember where you have come from, what God has done for you in the past, basically, and look back also to Abraham and to Jacob, the great prophets who are your fathers, basically. So in this, the Old Testament Study Guide said this passage clearly indicates that the numbers of the children of Israel were known and the bonds of their habitation fixed in the days when the Lord divided to the nations their inheritance. We conclude, therefore, that there must have been a division of men in the spiritual world, and those who were appointed to be the children of Israel were separated and prepared for a special inheritance. So something that was really cool that was brought up, basically, and this is going to get into verse 8 as well. Let's read verse 8, and then we'll talk about this. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. And he found in him a desert land, and in the waste howling wilderness, led him about, he instructed him and kept him as the apple of his eye. So they're talking about really here that God knew the children of Israel. God knew who these people were, and really kind of implying a pre-existence to an extent in here, that this is when it was all put in place, the plan was put there, this is what's happened, basically. Just like that quote talked about. So verse 10 is talking about Jacob was wandering through the land, and he found him in the desert and instructed him and helped him. Verse 11, as an eagle stirreth up her nest, fluttereth over her young, spreadeth abroad her wings, taketh them, beareth them on her wings. So the Lord alone did lead him, and there was no strange God with him. He made him ride on the high places of the earth, that he might eat the increase of the fields, that he made him to suck honey out of the rock, and oil out of the flinty rock, butter of kine, milk of sheep, with fat of lambs, and rams of the breed of Bashan, and goats with the fat of kidneys of wheat. Thou didst drink the pure blood of the grape. So how God really nourished and took care of Jacob. While Jacob was in the desert, they took care of him. And Jacob also meaning the children of Israel, basically, that God took care of them. They didn't want for much. It was given to them. Basically, they kept the commandments. They got food. Basically, they were blessed. They were taken care of. Verse 15 is kind of an interesting one. But Jeshurun waxed fat and kicked. Thou art waxen fat. Thou art grown thick. Thou art covered with fatness. Then he forsook God, which made him and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. So let's look at these words here. Bashan, the breed of Bashan, and of Jeshurun, these two places here that are being used in these verses. The word Bashan means fruitful. It was the title given to a district east of the Sea of Galilee that was taken by the Israelites during the conquest of Canaan. It extended from the border of Gilead on the south to the base of Mount Hermon on the north and was given as inheritance to the tribe of Manasseh. Bashan included the area now known as the Golan Heights. The word Jeshurun is a Hebrew word meaning upright or right in the sight of God, and refers to Israel itself. As used in Deuteronomy 32:15, it implies that Israel was once in the path of righteousness, but upon becoming fat or prosperous, would yet kick or rebel or fight basically against God and esteem the source of their salvation as not. Some feel that it refers to Israel's calling to be a righteous people and that God used this word to demonstrate her flagrant disregard for him. That could be in the translations. That could be that those words were changed basically. So just talking about how these are places talking about the prosperity, they got blessed, tremendously blessed. And then they got lazy, and then they forgot God, and it all fell apart and went bad for them basically. Now in here they talk about the rock of salvation. We've heard this twice now. We're going to hear it a few more times. What does this rock of salvation mean? Let's look at this. So Genesis 49:24, Christ is the stone of Israel. DNC 50:44, I am the good shepherd and the stone of Israel. He that buildeth upon this rock shall never fall. So Christ is thus the stone or foundation upon which all men must build. Of him the psalmist prophesied, this is Psalms 118:22, the stone which the builders refused has become the headstone of the corner. We find this in Matthew and Mark and Luke. Peter used this truth to teach that the saints as lively stones should build a spiritual house with Christ, the stone of Israel, as the foundation. So that's a quote from Mormon doctrine. Now that the Apostle Paul understood this concept is clear from a statement he made about the children of Israel during the period of their wanderings. Quote, this is 1 Corinthians 10:4, for they drank out of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. In other words, they all ate the same spiritual meat, drank the same spiritual drink. So the rock of salvation, the rock of Israel is Jesus Christ. Very, very important. So that's the same for all of it. That's the whole principle of the gospel, is to help us to build a personal relationship with Christ. As we build a personal relationship directly with Christ, we pray to him, we talk with him in our prayers, we read the scriptures, we study his life. That helps us to build our house upon the stone. Okay, like the old primary song, when the wise man builds his house upon the rock, foolish man builds his house upon the sand. Many opinions, one opinion. So instead of going the world's way, which is total democracy, mob rule, we follow Christ, which is a theocracy basically, one person in charge, but that one person has perfect and infinite love for us. And because of that, it's an easy thing for him to understand us and work with us and make a system not to benefit himself, but to benefit all of us. And that's the important part of the gospel, is that connection with Christ himself. If you want more revelation in your life, if you want more understanding, have a personal relationship with Christ. Okay, that is going to help you more than anything else, is coming to Christ himself. That's the whole point of the prophet. The whole point of the prophet isn't to make you believe I have to follow what the prophet says. That's not good. The prophet's whole point is to help you follow Christ. Very important. If you ever have somebody who claims to be a prophet and they say that you must follow me to learn the truth, baloney. They're lying to you. They're not the truth. The whole point of the prophet is to follow Christ. Man never puts himself in a position where he is in between the rest of humans and Christ. He is a false prophet. Prophets don't put themselves between the people and Christ. They're there to lead the people to Christ, to be an assistant shepherd to the good shepherd and bring them in. Very important thing to always remember. Okay, verse 16, they provoked him to jealousy with strange gods, With abominations provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. So talking about they went into idol worship. They worshiped other things than God himself. Anything you worship that's more important to you than God is your God. It doesn't matter whether that's the outdoors. It doesn't matter whether that's sports. It doesn't matter whether that's money or an actual thing, whatever. If you love it more than you love God, that is your God, basically. And that's what he's talking about here. Verse 18, of the rock that begat thee, thou art unmindful, and hast forgotten God that formed thee. Realizing God created you, and you have forgotten him. This reminds me of the joke. The comedian Jeff Allen tells this joke about teenagers. He says every adult should have a teenager in their life. And he says that he believes that this is the whole point of a teenager, is so we can understand what God is feeling like, so that we know what it's like to create a life form that denies our existence. Basically, it's kind of his little tongue-in-cheek joke about it. But that's kind of goes along with how Israel treats God, basically. So Israel acted like a teenager with God and rebelled against him and thought they were smarter than God and did their own thing, and it all fell apart and it didn't work out. Verse 20, and he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be. So I didn't think I read 19. And when the Lord saw it, he abhorred them because of the provoking of his sons and of his daughters. And he said, I'll hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be. For they are a very froward generation, children in whom is no faith. So they have become faithless. They have stopped believing in God and in his ability to help them, basically. 21, they have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. For a fire is kindled in mine anger, and shall burn unto the lowest hell, and shall consume the earth with her increase, and set on fire the foundations of the mountains. I will heap mischiefs upon them. I will spend mine arrows upon them. They shall be burnt with hunger, and devoured with burning heat, and with bitter destruction. I will also send the teeth of beasts upon them, with the poison of serpents of the dust. The sword without and terror within shall destroy both the young man and the virgin, the suckling also with the man of gray hairs. I said I would scatter them into corners. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. Were it not that I feared the wrath of the enemy, lest their adversaries should behave themselves strangely, and lest they should say, our hand is high, and the Lord hath not done all this. For they are a nation void of counsel, neither is there any understanding in them. Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this, that they would consider the latter end. How should one chase 1,000 and two but put 10,000 to flight, except their rock had sold them, and the Lord had shut them up? For the rock is not as our rock, even our enemies themselves being judges. For their vine is of the vine of Sodom and of the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are grapes of gall. Their clusters are bitter. Their wine is the poison of dragons and the cruel venom of asps. Is not this laid up in store with me and sealed up among my treasures? So lots and lots of visual remembrance. And this is actually the song. Chapter 32 might actually be the song instead of verse 20 in chapter 31. A lot of visualness, understanding that when Israel goes bad, it goes really, really bad. So we have to realize too, when we do not keep the commandments, then there's punishments that come upon us. We miss blessings, which is a punishment by itself. And then sometimes there's other punishments that can actively happen to us because of not keeping the commandments. Now, the Israelites, because of their unique situation as being the children of Israel, they have a little bit different emphasis on what's going on with them. So it doesn't quite get this bad for the bulk of us, basically. But sometimes I'm sure it feels like it's this bad, basically. But they're going to be destroyed. They're going to have tons of problems, lots and lots of issues. So, verse 35, to me belongeth vengeance and recompense. Their foot shall slide in due time, for the day of their calamity is at hand, and the thing that shall come upon them make haste. So it's not going to be long before they go bad, basically. Verse 36, for the Lord shall judge his people and repent himself for his servants, when he seeth that their power is gone, and there is none shut up or left. And he shall say, where are their gods, the rock in whom they trusted? Remember, Christ is the rock, but they're going to pick a different rock to worship. And he's saying, where's the blessings from your rock? Why isn't this God that you put your trust in helping you, basically? Verse 38, which did eat the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offerings. Let them rise up and help you and be your protection. So that's what he's saying here is, where's your gods? Why aren't your gods that you're sacrificing to, why aren't your gods eating the fat of your sacrifice? Why isn't your gods drinking the drink offerings of wine? Why aren't your gods blessing you and protecting you? That's his question to Israel. So verse 39, he's going to turn this around. See now that I, even I, am he, and there is no God with me. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. So this is God stating, I can kill, I can save, I can, I am in control of both sides of this equation. Both those elements, the whole thing follows me. Verse 44, I lift up my hand to heaven and I say, I live forever. If I whet my glittering sword and mine hand take hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to mine enemies and will reward them that hate me, saying that if you go against me, here's my sword, it's going to be ready. A wet glittering sword. Now, a wet sword is usually a sword that's either come out of refinement. Basically, sometimes you would wet it on the stones to minimize the friction, so that it sharpens the sword on the stone, but doesn't necessarily ruin it or cause too much heat coming off of it to warp the sword. So you've got a sword that's fresh, ready to go, basically, and I'm going to offer the judgment. Verse 42, I will make mine arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, and that with the blood of the slain of the captives from the beginning of revenges upon the enemy. So he's saying, look, you don't have, I will take care of my people. I will exact judgment. Okay, anytime you hear of God and his sword, that is judgment. Okay, God's sword is judgment. He's going to take care of it. He's going to get rid of the wicked people, basically. You don't need to worry about it. God will handle all of this. And he says in there, basically, this is my job to take care of this. So it's not our job to punish wicked. It's his job to do that. That's an important thing for us to understand. Verse 43, rejoice, O ye nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants, and will render vengeance to his adversaries, and will be merciful unto his land and to his people. And so this is reminding the people that if you keep the commandments, then God will protect you. God will avenge you, okay? He's not saying that I will tell you to go avenge you. I will avenge you. So this is a very, very, very important point, and it's brought up when you compare this with the teachings of Christ. Okay, Christ taught love people, forgive everyone. God will forgive whom he wants, but you have to forgive everybody. Okay, so in the gospel, there's these two principles. There's justice and there's mercy. God wants us to learn mercy. He is reserving justice for himself. It's not up to us to do justice. He's doing that himself. It's us to learn mercy. That is a very important fundamental principle of the gospel of Jesus Christ. We need to make sure we understand that. Just like it says in here, God will worry about justice and avenging, not us. He's not telling Israel was going to do this for him. He's saying that he will take care of it, basically. Verse 44, and Moses came and spake all the words of this song in the ears of the people, he and Hosea the son of Nun. So this is the actual song like we had talked about. This is the actual song that we just read. So the first probably 42, 43 verses of this, that is the song that Moses was given when he and Joshua were in the temple, in the tabernacle, the congregation, and they were to give this song to Israel. Why were they giving this song to Israel? To be a reminder to Israel and a witness. So if they follow the blessings, it's a reminder of the blessings. If they follow the cursings, it is a witness against them, that they are the ones that broke it, nobody else. They knew the consequence. They knew it going in, and they still broke it. So that's an important thing. All right, let's see. Verse 45, Moses made an end of speaking these words to all Israel. And he said unto them, so these are some of his final words here in this. Set your hearts unto all the words which I testify among you this day, which ye shall command your children to observe to do, all the words of this law. For it is not a vain thing for you, because it is your life. And through this thing ye shall prolong your days in the land, whither ye go over Jordan to possess it. And the Lord spake unto Moses that selfsame day. So this is another revelation, saying, Get thee up into this mountain Abarim, unto Mount Nebo, which is in the land of Moab, that is over against Jericho. And behold the land of Canaan, which I give unto the children of Israel for a possession. And die in the mount whither thou goest up, and be gathered unto thy people, as Aaron thy brother died in Mount Hor, and was gathered unto his people. Because ye trespassed against me among the children of Israel at the waters of Meribah Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zin, because ye sanctified me not in the midst of the children of Israel, yet thou shalt see the land before thee, but thou shalt not go thither unto the land which I give the children of Israel. So if you remember from the book of Numbers, I believe it was chapter 20, if I remember correctly, around Numbers chapter 20, Aaron died in the Mount of Hor, and remember in the Numbers 27, sorry. He mentions this again in Numbers 20. Numbers 27 is the same as Deuteronomy 32 in a way. So if you remember, there was a problem to the children of Israel at the waters of Meribah Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin. If you remember, Moses was supposed to strike the rock, and he spoke words to go to the rock, almost like he was commanding the rock. He didn't honor God properly, and because of that sin, he lost his chance to go into Israel. So he can see it. So Moses is being told, go up to this mount. There you can see Israel. You can see the land, but you're not stepping in. Basically, and you're done. You're done because of this. So sometimes things that we think don't have a big consequence might, and have a longer lasting consequence in the rest of our life if we're not careful. So let's jump over to chapter 33, the final blessings that Moses is giving the children of Israel as they're getting ready to move in to the promised land.